Today I want to talk to you about the 3 secrets to building financial stability. Before we start though, subscribe to the channel. Leave a like if you want to learn how to save and manage your money. Now these 3 elements, these 3 secrets, these 3 pillars that I will talk about in this video are linked to each other. What does this mean? That if you do one but not the other 2, or if you do 2 but not the 3rd, regardless of the order, you cannot build financial stability. Anyway, it's difficult. Obviously, guys, these are considerations that I make after learning to manage my money. So, from 2019 to 2024, it's now 5 years after having talked about it online, after having discussed it with colleagues on this topic, after having interviewed hundreds of Italians in my format. How much do Italians earn? I've come to this conclusion because indeed in my journey I asked myself, okay, but what are the fundamental things? So the first element is learning to manage your money. That is money management. The problem with money management is that no one teaches us. That is, if our parents didn't teach us certain things or we didn't see certain things, we don't know how to manage money. That is, we don't have any knowledge, so it's normal not to know how to manage them. It's normal, for example, to spend all the money. For many, it's normal to buy things on credit. So by taking out loans, because it's what we've seen from our parents. It's what the people around us do. And so we consider it normal. But this, if you want to stop having money problems, if you no longer want to worry about having to wait to buy a pair of shoes for your children or wait to make certain choices, you really need to change your mindset. And I know this might be difficult at first, it was for me too, but maybe I was lucky enough to fail, to hit rock bottom. So the first point is money management. Those who have little think it's useless to manage money. I mean, what am I managing? I have little money, I have nothing to manage. But it's actually the complete opposite. Having little money is precisely why you must learn to manage it. Because if you can't manage the little money you have now, you won't be able to manage a lot of money you might have in the future. So it's crucial to start understanding how to manage that amount, even if it's small, that you have now. Managing your money means having control over your money. I know I talk about it often. This is the core of the channel, the focus of the channel, because it's my mission. That is, what I want to do is really help more and more people understand what it means to manage their own money, to avoid problems and build financial stability. Even with a normal salary, because I was able to do it with a normal salary. I will soon explain a few things to help you better understand this step. Why didn't I mention money immediately? Most people are convinced that they need to earn more. Obviously, this is true, but it's not the only thing. Because how many times have we seen famous people who earn a lot of money? I don't know. Many celebrities like actors, singers and athletes have fallen into ruin and debt, such as Madonna. But that one earns €1 million a month and ended up bankrupt. Why? Because they don't know how to manage money, especially if a person comes from nothing and in a short time finds themselves with a lot of money in hand. So ending up bankrupt is not such a strange thing after all. Just think about the fact that, for example, those who win the lottery scratch. And buying scratch tickets is wrong, especially for those with limited income. Why is he convinced that reversing his financial fate is a result of a stroke of luck? Well, it's not like that. The stroke of luck is the moment you decide to take control of your financial situation. Not the lottery, because if you win at scratch, you win the lottery and whatever else. It's statistically proven that 70% of people who win the lottery are in the same situation as before within 5 years. And 30% of these end up in a worse situation than before. Why? Because they didn't know how to manage their money. So this is pillar number 1, pillar number 2, the income. There's no point in beating around the bush, guys. I want to be honest. If you earn little, life is hard. I mean, there's no point in fooling ourselves. Okay? Surely by learning to manage your money, you will be able to live a slightly better life than if you don't manage it. But if your income is low, it's tough. And if this situation goes on for a long time, it becomes really frustrating and wearing. So once we've learned to manage our money, the little that we have, we need to work on our income. We need to go to work to increase our income. Because obviously it's okay to have a period of difficulty. It happens to everyone. It happened to me too. But if this is a constant, it means there really is a fundamental problem. So even if you find all the methods to save, to spend little, I have often talked about it on the channel, but those are good for buffering for a period because maybe there is a period of difficulty. There is, I don't know, one of the partners who works less, who has lost work, who has problems. It can happen for goodness sake, but it cannot be a permanent condition if you want to solve this problem forever. And I'm not saying become rich because guys, I mean, becoming rich is done. I'm not saying I don't believe in it, but I'm talking about the normality of the average person who has a job as an employee, where in a family indeed both work, maybe there are 2 children. They lead a life without too many demands and simply want to have a decent house, a decent car. I'm not talking about lavish stuff because you can't afford it. If you have a normal salary, take your vacations every year, have a little nest egg set aside and not have to worry indeed about unforeseen events. Being able to pay everything on time, being able to save consistently, so putting something aside every month, this, in my opinion, is stability, where you are serene, where money is not a problem in your mind. But this step, first of all, we have to make in our mind. Then all of this will also be reflected in our bank account. That's why management comes first and then comes the increase in income. Because once we understand we have control over our money, then we need to try to improve. So increase the income. What can we do? We can find a better paying job. That is, if I have a job where I get paid little, and I realize that despite my efforts, I still struggle, I really should make the decision. Yes, okay, it may also be a risk, but to do something where I am paid more. Be careful. But this is not about working more, because many people do that, they work more. The point is not to work more hours. The point is to be paid more for the same hours, because if you work more hours, that is, you still have a limit if you work a lot. But you are paid €8 an hour, that is, you always have the problem because your time is limited. You can't work more than 12 or 13 hours a day. That is, you can do it for a period, even work every day. Then you get sick, you have health problems, and so it's definitely worse. Another thing you can do is create new flows of income. One of the main mistakes is to depend on a single income. What's the point? The point is that if 100% of your income depends on a single source, if that source fails, you have zero. But if you have 2 sources of income where one perhaps is 70%, 80% and the other is 20-30, it's already better because even if the larger one fails, you're not left with zero. And perhaps you can grow that other one. Precisely to fix this unexpected event that has occurred, I don't know, perhaps indeed, you lose your job, but you have a second activity, a second job. This thing can really save you. So it's crucial to have multiple sources of income, even better if your income is not tied to time, because as long as you exchange your time for money, it's tough, guys. Let's be clear, it's tough. I realized it too anyway. You know, from my story, I sorted out my accounts and everything with a normal salary. But then I realized that I couldn't do much. I couldn't reach certain goals. Continuing on that path, I was definitely better off than before. But if you want to have that something extra, you have to stop trading your time for money and create an income that is detached from time. I'll give you an example. A couple that creates an e-commerce. Now I'm giving an example. Then you can do 1,000 things, always as a second activity. I'm not saying to leave your job. So wife's job, husband's job, I don't know, maybe one part-time, the wife part-time, whatever it is. Second activity, maybe e-commerce, done as a couple in free time, unrelated to time. If that e-commerce goes even while we are at work, if sales come in, we are earning. Obviously, it's a project and activity that needs to be built, so it's something different from work, but it's definitely an extra income that allows me to live a little better. It's still a parachute in case one of the two should lose their job, for example, or should have a difficult time. And indeed, it's detached from time. The third point to have financial stability, indeed, building financial stability is saving. And I would also tell you, then investments, there's no need to become experts. Then guys, if you want, among other things, have made a video course just to learn how to create financial stability and manage your own money. I'll leave the link in the description, then you see. Now, what's the point? We've seen the management, we've seen the income, but if you earn so much, but you don't set aside, and anyway, your account at the end of the month remains at zero, you're always in the same spot. That is because when people say exactly earning more is better, because it doesn't work. Because if you earn more but spend more, you're always in the same situation. In my view of things, a measure to gauge wealth is not how much you earn, but how much you have left at the end of the month once you've paid everything. That is, what's the margin? If I paid everything, I'm quite calm, and I have an extra 1,000 euros every month. Wow, you understand that a good part, maybe I can put away and enjoy maybe another little piece. It's a whole other thing. So this is the point, guys, in the end. I mean, if the result between the income and the outcome is zero, you can even earn 10,000 euros a month. But that number is always zero, so nothing changes. If simply, as the famous Alfio Bardola says about this, I agree with him, you are just a poor person with a high standard of living. Enough. There's no difference with someone who earns 1,500 euros a month, okay? So what's the point? The point is to create a habit of saving, to put something aside every month, to have the mentality of not spending everything, but always putting aside a little nest egg. Even if we already have money for emergencies, I often talk about the emergency fund. Continue to inflate this account every month and then perhaps make some investments. If you notice, guys, even in all the interview videos that I do with people in the format, Indeed, how much do Italians earn? When I ask them if they manage to save, most of them tell me no. Even if they are people from the same city and who have more or less the same financial situation, that is, how is it possible that the one who earns 1,800 euros cannot save with a family of 4 people, and the one who earns 2,500 cannot save anyway? Why? Because often the problem is not the income. Surely, if they are higher, it is easier. But if you do not save and do not know how to manage them, you are still in trouble and struggle to get to the end of the month. Instead, for example, in one of the latest videos, the one of the interviews in Trento, I found a guy who earned 1,000 euros a month and put aside 200 isna. How does he manage? Okay, it's true that maybe he lives with his parents. It's true that maybe he doesn't have certain expenses, but if you have the mentality of spending all your salary, even if you live with your parents, you don't put anything aside. So it's this thing that needs to be changed, and this thing needs to be changed here. That is, saving comes before everything else, obviously, except for health and essential and important things. But it comes before holidays, it comes before fun, it comes before extras, it comes before clothes. Not the essentials to dress us, but everything that is extra. Okay, if I have my little nest egg that protects me, then okay, I can then think differently. But if I don't have it, it's about having fun. It's not the priority. The priority is to save to create stability. Once there is stability, then the conversation becomes different. I've increased my income, so the management becomes much more flexible. So the savings then must also be linked to investments. Why? Because we still have to think about our future. We know very well then, among other things, that the pension situation will always be worse because the pension will always be further away with the years of age and will always be lower. And we must therefore also simply think about making a pension fund as soon as possible, or making a savings plan, or perhaps using deposit accounts. These 3 forms, which are quite simple, where you don't need to be some kind of finance or economics expert, but you need to know the basics. Obviously, it's not good to dive in head first without knowing anything, but indeed, just knowing the basics and understanding the main tools is enough, which are the less risky ones. But they also allow us to secure a future with financial stability. Why do we rely on the present time? And at this moment, maybe I'm healthy, I'm young, I'm strong, I can work even 10, 12 hours, which anyway, I manage to keep going. But it's not always like this. So if you work 10, 12 hours and burn yourself out, you're not making a very wise choice. Then of course, it's your life and you can do whatever you want. So guys, in my opinion, these were the 3 pillars to build financial stability. Let me know in the comments what you think. Obviously, leave a like, subscribe, and we, as usual, will see you around.